Check, check, check.
So in these collaboration sessions, as I like to call them, I'm going to propose, just for sake of future, that we rotate who is sending out the emails and setting agendas and things. But since I did that this time, I'm just going to call us to order and invite John Weichart to invite our colleagues from Schmidt to begin making a presentation. I sent out an agenda earlier to public officials just asking for input on additions. There were no further additions, so we will go with the agenda that was proposed, which is that Schmidt will present for between 20 and 30 minutes, and then we will have a roundtable discussion. I think collaboration works best if we can all agree to respect one another's time. So sort of if a point's been made, you can say yes, but make additional points as you move forward. And in that way, we can really build a circle that's working towards a goal. My goal today is to get just further input. As we all know, CIB has been holding public meetings. We are all invited to go to those. We're appreciative to the CIB for spending this extra time with us, and to Schmidt for holding a meeting where they welcome our questions and input directly. John.
I'm going to run up here and use this because Schmidt will be following me up here briefly. First, I want to thank you for the invitation to be here with you today. This is part of the input gathering that we're doing as a capital improvement board. We've had, actually it all started back in June, a work session that you had collectively, a letter from the City Council that came from that work session. That was the beginning of input. In July, we had a series of meetings with 9 different groups over 2 days. In September, we had a public meeting just a couple of weeks ago, so we're very happy to be meeting with you as well. And the guidance for these meetings comes from your interlocal agreement, where you've said to us you need to meet with city and county leadership and the public, and that's what we've been attempting to do. And Schmidt's been involved with those conversations and has been leading them. I want to mention we have members of the CIB who are with us today. I know they're now scattered around the room, so I'm going to look. Jay Baer is here, Jim Silberstein, Joyce Poling, Doug Bruce. I saw there's Eric Spoonmore. Did I miss somebody who came in and sat down somewhere else? All right, and we have, are you just waving at me, Margie? Oh, okay. All right, well, I'll give it back. I'll give it back. I'm easily distracted. Sorry. I do want to make mention of the fact, because I think it's important. This is our 29th public meeting about the expansion of the convention center. The 29th public meeting we've had since we first met 1 year ago this month. So we are now into 1 year as a CIB. We've had 12 CIB meetings. We have had 5 city council presentations, 3 meetings of FabTech. We've interviewed hoteliers, construction managers, owners reps, all in public meetings. We have, I mentioned our work in July, meeting with collaborators. This is our second work session, obviously, and I mentioned the public meetings. So 29 public meetings, open to the public. We have a website. Everything we do is on the website for complete transparency, including our agenda, including our minutes, everything you may want to know about our work. With that, let me introduce Sarah Hemstedt, who's the CEO and principal at Schmidt Associates. Eddie Layton is with her as well, who's an associate and project manager on the project. They're going to lead you through where we are to date on design. And I want to mention to you that this design has evolved after every one of the public meetings, or every one of the meetings we've had seeking input. So the design you're going to see today may still be, as of 8:30 this morning, it was still in somewhat rough form because it's still being changed and adaptations are still being made to it. And I'm going to assume there may be others that are made after this meeting as we listen to how you react to what we're presenting to you. And then we have a CIB meeting next Wednesday where we'll get an update on all of this. So with that, let me introduce Sarah Hemstedt from Schmidt Associates.
Thanks, everybody. And I want to acknowledge our partners at JS Held and Weddle Brothers. It's not just Schmidt folks, but yeah, wave JS Held and Weddle Brothers. It takes a cast of thousands of designers and contractors and owners, representatives to make projects like this happen. So I want to thank them for being here today. And I can assure you that the design will continue to change and iterate, because that is the process of design. And we are right now concluding a phase called schematic design. And the point of schematic design is to get all the pieces together and assembled, figure out the overall scope of the project, how those pieces start to go together. But the very next phase is design development, and it is for just exactly what it sounds like it's for. It's to continue to develop and iterate the design. So there's a long way to go, but we have come a long way. So our agenda today, I'm going to recap our project goals, talk about the design schedule, where we are and what's coming next, talking about the building program, that's the elements, all of the elements that will go into this building when it is complete. Talk about the public meeting and what happened at the public meeting, the very last one, great input, and then how it influenced what happened with the floor plans as they stand today, with the elevations as they stand today. I want to go into the city comments and how the design is starting to address some of those comments, go into the LEED scorecard. That's how we measure sustainability and energy, where we know we are right now, where we think we're going, and then I'll touch on the budget at the end and then leave lots of questions, Ms. Mayor, for lots of time for questions at the end. So just as a big reminder of what is the true north of this project, and the true north of this project is represented really in 5 big goals. One, the biggest goal of this project is to expand the space so that you can offer larger and more conventions. You can bring more people here to Bloomington to appreciate all the great things that you have, and you can act as a resource to people who live in Bloomington right now. 2, we want to create inspiring architecture, creating memorable experiences. We want people to feel like they have been somewhere when they have been here. 3, we want to showcase the uniqueness and amenities, what is special about Bloomington, what makes it authentic, a place that is different than every place else. 4, we want to enhance connectivity in every way that we can enhance connectivity on foot, whether you're on a bike, whether you're in a car, the community connectedness to this space and place. And then finally, we want to achieve sustainability. We want to make this place a model of how convention centers can really showcase sustainable solutions. So here's where we are. Schematic design, project definition, is the first phase in any project. Next, we go to design development or final design, then to construction documents, and then we start bidding the project to subcontractors to start doing the work. And so when I say there's a long way to go, I really mean it. We are not all the way through construction documents until the end of July. It means there's a lot more months of work for all the architects and engineers to iterate and then document all of the design decisions. Where we are right now, if I jump into a little bit of detail about schematic design, which is project definition, we have done existing building assessments. We have done things like getting surveys on the site across the street. We've been collaborating with the community. We've been collaborating with Talisha and her wonderful staff, collaborating with the engineers to iterate solutions. And we are right now at the very end of that schematic design project definition period, which means coming to final solutions on all the parts and pieces, how they're going to go together, and doing budget reconciliation. And so that is the end of any schematic design process, is do we have the right things together? Are we headed in the right direction? And are we on the right budget? So part of that is making sure that we have the program correct. So the program is all of the elements that go into a building, down to the restrooms, down to the vestibules, down to the big event center. And when we're all the way done, we are about 60 to 64,000 square feet in new construction. That's the addition to this building. That's right across the street. And then this building is about 40,000 square feet. And so within that construct of about 100,000 square feet, making sure that we have enough space for every janitor's closet, every mechanical room, and the big event and convention spaces like this one, so that we can do the job that we're all brought here to do. So here's where we were. Lagging just a little bit. Here's where we were with the first version of the floor plans. What's most important here, and I'm going to not take this mic with me. Can I take that mic with me?
Hello.
Okay. All right, I'm going to Vanna White this. What's most important about this building is that it is an addition and renovation that comes to one complete facility when we're all the way said and done. And when we talk about the building across the street, could whoever's running that make that go away? Thank you. What's most important about the building across the street is the core of that building is the exhibit space. That is most of the space that we're building across the street is one giant exhibit space that is tall enough that you can have basketball in that space, tall enough that you could have volleyball in that space, tall enough that you could drive a fire truck in that space if that was the convention you wanted to have. The firefighters union could have a conference in that space. And that space is subdividable so that it could go into a series of smaller spaces too, much like this room that we're in right now, except for with the newer, better version of these walls. So that is the main thing that happens across the street, with gathering and entry space in the yellow all the way around it, and support spaces behind it. So that's where we tuck in our delivery trucks, our semis, our garbage. That's where we have our brand new kitchen that serves both of these spaces, all of those tucked behind. In this building, really, fundamentally, it is going to stay in a space arrangement like it is right now. There are things we need to fix here. There's a little bit of money we need to spend here to do some upgrades. But fundamentally, this building can function like it does now. On the second floor, as we had this drawing originally, the second floor stays fairly similar to the way it works now. And we have a little bit of meeting room space on the other side. Here we have our bridge, and we were showing a new hallway, adding some flow space out of the big convention space here. That's where we left off on that floor plan. And it looked something like this, with a kind of complicated roof line, tilting up at the corners, welcoming visitors from both sides. What you see here in the back, that big box, that is the taller exhibit space behind. There's no reason for the public lobby space in front to be as tall, and so we're trying to drop that down to pedestrian scale. So that's what we took. Microphones, it's just too many. Okay, so that's what we took to the public meeting when we met several weeks ago, and we asked these two questions. So the convention center is a civic center. What are your thoughts on how to make it easier to use, better, more inviting? And then what are your thoughts on how we make this really authentic to Bloomington? And we got great feedback, and like at every public meeting, some of the feedback ends up being a little contradictory, but there were definitely through lines. One of the through lines was, where's the limestone? We're a place where limestone is significant and it is important, and this is a brick building, but there should be some limestone in the relationship. Where can we look at opportunities for public art and how that integrates into the space? Can we make it more pedestrian scale? Like, we appreciate that the lobby drops down lower than the big exhibit hall behind, but is there another way to think about taking that to a more pedestrian human scale? Is there another way we can connect with nature? We know we're going to fill up this entire block with building, but is there an opportunity for some green space? How do we make it contextual, more contextual with Bloomington downtown? And how do we make it Instagrammable and authentic? Where's the spot you're going to take your picture and know that you've been somewhere? All right, so now I'm going to have to walk over there with the thing. All right, that's okay. That's all right. All right, these are my 10,000 steps for the day. Okay, so with all of that in mind, the team went back to the drawing board and have started to make some changes. And I feel like this is a little hard to see here, but there's a couple really important changes that I want to point out. So one of the changes was, as we started to look at how do you create a place, how do you really create that center of gravity where people will gather, we started to question whether our lobby space all the way around the building really needed to be equal on all sides of the building, or whether we needed to take the big box of the exhibit space and move it off just a little bit to the side. It's super important that you have a way to circulate all the way around for lots of reasons, moving people, moving food, moving stuff. But when we push the box just a little bit, what ends up happening is we have a center of gravity that's starting to be created between the renovated half of the convention center and the new half, because we have extra space right on that corner where we can really do some interesting art integration. We can really open up into the streetscape, and we start to create really a sense that this is one building, not two. And so that's an important shift. Even though it seems small, I think it makes a huge difference. And the other thing we started to question when we did that, when we pushed over, could we start to make the second floor of the new facility of the new addition, start to have a better relationship with the existing building? And when we did that, when we pushed our box over, what that allowed us to do is gather all our meeting spaces right adjacent to the bridge, so that it would have a beautiful view to this half of our addition. And it lets us open up the corner so that we could have a roof garden there, an accessible roof garden on the second floor. And so from that space, that little green box up top, you could step outside and actually look to the rest of downtown proper and have an indoor-outdoor experience, which I think is infinitely rentable, Talisha. You could sell that tomorrow. I'll have a glass of wine out there. But it also starts to make this a very special space and place. The other thing we started to question is, when we're going to bring that new bridge to this building, do we really want to start cutting up our historic corner up at the very, very edge? It's such a nice space. And so we're looking at ways to bring our bridge just a little further down the building before we tie in and make that connection, which lets this beautiful facade stay pristine and be a beautiful facade, right? Which I think goes directly to authenticity, right? Like this is a real place, and we should protect it. So then next what we started to do was look at the elevations again and say, once we make those two big moves, hey, Eddie, can you just do thank you. You're the best. So next what we started to do was say, once we do those two things, what can we do with scale, and what can we do with greening the facility? And so we went back to the drawing board and said, okay, so if we integrate a green roof, a person space up on that level, what that allows us to do is really drop this corner. And so from that corner experience, as a pedestrian, you feel much better because you have a balcony space that is occupiable right here at this level. And also we can start to integrate new entrances, which drops that scale down and the canopy entrance down. And so it's more like 9 or 10 feet, and then another 4 feet to the next second floor before we jump up to the lobby level, before we jump up to the exhibit hall. I think that feels much better when it relates to this building, but it also feels much better as a pedestrian. We started to talk about if we have a butterfly roof, which is what this is showing, a butterfly roof, would the break in that roof be an opportunity to integrate both art and limestone? So could we take and make an element in that space where we have maybe Easter egg carvings, little ones that you find if you know what you're looking for. So we have shades, so we have shadow. And it's a nice break with the brick, which is going to be the same color, the same tone as this building. And so we start to pick up on the historic nature of what is here, but break it with limestone in the middle. The other thing we really started to push on pretty hard was making the bridge more beautiful. And I think the way to do that is to make the bridge replicate some of the window patterning that is happening here, make it a simple, elegant piece that takes you across the street, but also gives you a reason to take pause and look up the street to the rest of Bloomington. So started to look pretty hard at making that a beautiful piece of architecture. So thank you, Eddie. So there's one version of the world, and this is from the streetscape side. So just in a massing model, this space right here would be that garden, that occupiable roof garden. We did cut a hole in the roof because it'd be kind of nice to have a little bit of sun down there. We can talk about that because it does rain here occasionally, but making that an occupiable space. And this is about the perspective if I was standing across the street. If I was catty corner looking at the building, this is about how that would feel. Go to the next one. So then we started looking at it in another way, which is to say, can we take all of those same ideas and simplify that roof line, and is that better? really what we're designing is a big, beautiful pavilion. That's really what it is. And so there is an option where we would take the butterfly roof and make it a clean, crisp, cantilevered line all the way across the building. And that's what you'd see here. The other elements The other elements fundamentally remain the same. And in fact, from the viewpoint of a walker down the street, of a pedestrian, it would feel very similar to the first, but go back. Thank you. But functionally, what that does is it allows us to bring the roof plane even a little bit lower than the butterfly and still keep a modern edge, still relate to the building that's across the street, and do the rest of the things that we talked about. So that's kind of where we are with our current floor plan updates and our elevation updates based directly on the feedback we received at the next board meeting. I feel like we're getting closer. Like I said, design is iterative, right? It's a big spiral. You get closer and closer to the right answer. And as we've spun another round here in the last 2 weeks, I feel like we've gotten closer to the right answer. More elegant, a better use of space, and more respectful of what's happening here. Okay. So in addition to that, we continue to look at requests from the city letter and how we can integrate those things in the project. And so we've made for ourselves a little scorecard so we can keep score and make sure that we're doing these things. As you read through each of the items incorporated into the project, some of them are policy and procedures, which is well above the pay grade of any of our architects and engineers. But they are here in the green column if we have been directed by the CIB that they belong in the green column. But some of them are directly related to design. And those things we have been able fundamentally to accommodate most of. And so when you think about things like a compact urban form and trying to create things like community character through the main entrances and making those welcoming and human scale, with each iteration we're trying to get closer and closer to meeting the true core of that intent. I think one of the things that is pretty important to note here is that we are not adding new public parking as a part of this. We are lined up with the parking garage that is across the street. That was a specific request in the city letter that we're going to use the parking that we have to service this facility. And in fact, where you saw that limestone element, that is directly related to the parking garage that is across the street. So we're trying to be good neighbors. We're trying to build out the urban fabric and also acknowledge that these two things go together. Park here and then come to the convention here. I'll touch on LEED Silver or equivalent in just a moment. We are talking about roof space and what we can do with that roof space. And so that's one that was listed under sustainability. And so I've mentioned several times that we found a way to accommodate occupiable green roof space, which is going to be really cool. And just, I think, that one of those Instagrammable moments up on that space. We are also looking at additional green roof that is just green roof, as in not occupiable. We're not going to hang out there with our glass of wine green roof, but growing green roof. And there are two places that we're looking at the ability to do that. One is on the lower roof. As you go around the lobby space, that would be a good place to accommodate green roof. And perhaps over the service kitchen spaces in the back of the building. And so we're continuing to evaluate that. We definitely can use some, if not all, of those two spaces. There'll be some equipment where the kitchen is, right? There'll be exhaust fans and things, but we continue to try to evaluate how we can put those things in that space. The space we probably want to avoid is the big roof of the exhibit hall for green roof, and it's for this reason. Green roofs are heavy. They take water, they're great, but in a long span structure, I'm gonna try to avoid putting additional weight on that structure if I possibly can. But we have other places we can accommodate it. In terms of the items that we're evaluating further, one is how the programming is going to work. And again, that's working with Talisha, working with staff on how that programming is going to work. And I should jump back to say one of the things, one of the requests has been fossil fuels, to be very careful about fossil fuels. And the last time I was asked this question, I hedged on the answer because of the kitchen. However, I'm very pleased to say that in the last few weeks, we've spent some time with the kitchen designers, spent some time with kitchen staff, and everybody's comfortable that we can go with all electric equipment there as well, which means I believe that we're going to be able to meet this goal and have an all electric building, which is pretty exciting. The one element that you'll see that is different than the request in the letter is the Sky Bridge, and I'll touch on that just briefly. That Sky Bridge is there in order to connect the addition and the existing building and make them operate as one. Our new kitchen will be on the other side of the street, and so that bridge is the pathway to bring food and equipment from one side of the street to the other. But everything else we should be able to accommodate. When we look at HVAC, the engineers have been hard at work as well with LEED Silver as the minimum, as the foundation. The HVAC system becomes tremendously important. It gets us so many points on the LEED scorecard. And so right now, it looks like we're kind of Goldilocksing it. We don't want too small, we don't want too big. I think option 2, which is a highly efficient system with electric boilers, is probably the way that this new facility will go, which will get us a decent amount of points in the LEED scorecard, which will be sustainable and will be less expensive than option 3. We continue to go down this path. Option 3 is slightly more efficient, so if we can afford it within our budget, we'll continue to look at that as well. So this is the LEED scorecard for anyone who has not spent a lot of time with it. And this, again, is our placeholder that we are tracking as we go. We redo it every month. I realize it's very difficult to read. So right now we are scoring at, our preliminary scoring reads a LEED Silver. But there are enough potential points in the yellow column that we maybe could eke it up, maybe to a LEED Gold. We'll continue to keep track of this and see where we can provide things that will be of use to Talisha, to her staff, to the citizens of Bloomington, to our convention attendees that fit within our budget and that get us points. There are some that are kind of easy. As an example, providing a shower, which is just a really good thing to do for Talisha's staff. If you provide that with bike racks, staff can ride to work, they can shower, that'll get you a LEED point. So things like that where we can accommodate them easily, we're gonna try to get those points in. And then all of it obviously needs to come into budget. And so that's where we are right now, is taking the new changes that we've made over the last 2 weeks, working with Weddle, working with the design team to go through the budget in its totality, figure out where we are, figure out what are must-haves, what are things we really wanted to do, but maybe don't make much sense because they don't fit in the budget, and then go from there. All right, I think I'm right on my 20 minutes. So I'm going to stop and open it up for questions.
So thank you so much for this presentation, and also just want to acknowledge how responsive your team has been to the ongoing input that you're getting, and really nice to see all of these changes and how well you have met so many of City Council's letter requests. Really appreciate that. Just a reminder to this group, the CIB is charged with making all of the decisions. So our work today is to ask questions, discover interest points, additional feedback I'm sure would be welcome. And we're scheduled to have about 30 minutes for this. That will take us over time though. And so I just want to acknowledge that and open it to questions.
Does this work? Okay, thank you. And I actually have 2, but I'll just ask 1 now because others may have questions. This is, first of all, very impressed with the changes you've made in response to the feedback. This is great. With respect to the rooftop garden, the occupiable rooftop garden, and this is maybe less of an architectural question than a policy question, but will there be opportunities for the general public who aren't attending specific events at the convention center to on occasion or in certain times have access to that space to, you know, if this is really an iconic view of Bloomington or will be, we want people who aren't necessarily attending a specific event.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, and I think best answered by either the CIB or by Talisha and her staff. That is a policy question for sure.
Well, actually, we haven't started talking about that yet.
Thank you.
Isabel.
I wanted to, first of all, I love the changes since the last time. Yes, great job. The interaction with the Beeline Trail is a concern, and I wonder if you could speak to how the convention center will interact with that, especially with now that the Skywalk is probably going to come further south.
That's a great question. So we're exploring two different ways of interacting with the Beeline Trail, and there are two different kind of opinions about it. One is that through the west side of this building, there might be some opportunity to create connectivity there. So that is an option. There are complexities with that option in that the delivery to this kitchen, which is going to remain in some form, happens right there. And I love not having public interact with like deliveries and knives and things. I love not doing that. So if I can keep the public away from my kitchen back of house, I would love to do that. The second way that we're exploring is our landscape architect, and I didn't go into our site planning today, has suggested space just to the south of the hotel that she thinks that connection could happen a lot better and has some ideas that way. So we will be bringing back some ideas and iterations of how that connectivity could work better, but we are very mindful that it is super important because what a great space.
I'll just share briefly related that I attended the Mayor's Institute on City Design earlier this year and had them look at the segment of Beeline Trail that goes from Hopewell up to Trades, and would like the opportunity to meet with CIB just during one of your usual meetings to share what I learned. Obviously, public's always invited to that, and talk about what the city's role of developing the Beeline is, and also how to incorporate anything into design of building. But also, I think if the hotel ends up going, anywhere along the trail, we'll want to talk to the hotelier that the CIB selects.
We'd be happy to put that on the agenda. We'll get that on the agenda.
Great, thank you. Kate.
Yeah, first, I concur. Every time I see what you've come up with, I just am more and more impressed with how you're making this feel like a project that's very responsive to the community. So thank you for that. And I just want to also give a shout out to the CIB, who we just said go, and it's been amazing to watch you work. And as someone who sits on a lot of boards and commissions and in a lot of government meetings, it's refreshing to see you work. So that said, sorry, that's my question is probably just reveals my maybe lack of attention to the discussions, but I'm wondering, with an all-electric building, which is great, has there been consideration to solar on that maybe main roof part? Well, that's it. I'll ask that.
Yeah, so that's still under evaluation, but we have had that conversation. Downside, upside. Solar's great, and we'll be able to generate something off of it here. It too is heavy, right? And so that long span steel, because in convention centers, what I want the long span steel to be able to do, in addition to holding up the normal load, people are going to want to hang things from the steel. right? So some people might want to hang their fire truck from the, or whatever. That actually that happens, right? At the Indianapolis Convention Center, it happens. And so I am cautious about over-promising how much weight I want to put on that roof because of how much weight will be beneath it. That said, the lower roofs could be an opportunity for solar, but that would be a trade with the green roof, right? And so it's being explored is the short answer, I guess the long answer to the question. Right now, we are not showing solar panels. So an option could be to have part of the building solar ready, which might be, again, that Goldilocks is, okay, if we're not ready to commit to solar right now, what could we do, maybe even on part of this building, to make it solar ready so we could get something for that.
Thank you.
Isaac?
Hello. Also, just reiterating what all my colleagues have said. First, thank you to the CIB for the amazing work that they've done, and thank you for these, I think, very inspiring designs. I'm really glad that we're heading with the pavilion look. It's beautiful. I have a question, and I have to preface this with saying that I'm a big Skywalk fan. Okay, both because I love Star Wars, but also I just think skywalks are generally iconic. But being the college town that we are, what's the clearance from the road to the skywalk, and what are we going to do to make sure that that it doesn't become iconic for stopping lots of U-Hauls?
That's our Instagrammable moment.
Right. So the clearance will be led by a couple different things. One, there are road standards that will have to be higher than in order to clear, and then two, we need to hit the second floor that is here and the second floor that is across the road. So my gut says we're going to be at least 15 feet in the air, if not higher than that.
Did you have
Actually, my other question was asked by
answered?
Isabel.
Okay.
So.
other question? Yeah, Hopi?
Thank you. I just want to hear a little bit more about the loading and unloading area in terms of vehicles turning off of College into it, or will they be coming off of, well, like how will that work? And then how will we have like assurance of pedestrian safety and vehicular travel flow and all of those things, and that it doesn't like detract from the overall image of what we're creating?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is one of the challenges of this site for sure, right? We are filling this site with building, and there's really no back, right? There's no back door. So having explored multiple places where the loading and unloading can be, where it is right here, tucked behind the southwest corner of the building. And it is there because it is the easiest place for semis to pull in and pull back out. There's enough space there where even, I'm not going to say an inexperienced semi driver, but it will not take the best semi driver in the world. That is a doable turn to pull into that space and back out. One of the things that's unique about this design as well, and you can see it right here, you can't really see it right there because it's jumping on my screen. Is that we're also designing the facility so that you can pull all the way into the facility and drive on the floor of the exhibit hall, which will make some of the complicated loading and unloading actually be able to happen in the exhibit hall itself. That's a trade because there's a substantial amount of square footage used to make that driving possible, but it is in direct response for the tough unloads to be able to take themselves out of the picture so that it's easier for everybody else. We also have multiple semi-loading docks in that space, and so we can load 3 and drive 1 in simultaneously, as well as having regular docks for just box trucks so that they can load while that's happening. All of that is buried behind Convention Center wall. And so the entirety of the loading zone will be happening behind what, to the observer walking down the street, will just read as a wall of the convention center.
Just as a quick follow-up, because I think, is that an alley platted over there? So is the entrance to that space actually going to be on both sides? I guess I'm interested in the future, I don't know if you have it on the slide, of just kind of an overview of what that street area would look like there.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. That'll get me there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. So, hello. Okay, so this is the older version of the plan, but it's the only one I have here that's actually on a site plan. But this will give you kind of a sense of what's happening. So here's our loading dock with our drive-through aisle right there. 3 semis plus 2 box trucks unloading simultaneously, space for all of that. This is the wall of the convention center. So trucks pull in this way, back into that space, and can pull directly out. And so that is how this yard, this loading yard, works. There is an alley here. There's also an alley here. Those alleys are not large enough to pull semis through them. Semis must pull into this lot and out of this lot on this street. So we did test that, not through driving a semi through there. We did test that to say, oh, if you're a really good semi driver, like, could you do it? And the answer is no, you cannot. Yeah, not unless you can shrink your truck. And so this lot here does not belong to the CIB. That is a private lot, and so we cannot go through that direction at all. So there will be no through traffic going that way, and there will be no through traffic going through the alley.
I have a question about the roof, and I know you said that the butterfly configuration was not the current plan, but I thought the sawtooth design of showers was iconic for Bloomington, and I would urge you to give serious consideration to the possibility of adding 1 or 2 or 3 tooths.
And to be clear, what is under evaluation right now is the butterfly roof, which is a simplification from where we were before. Before we had a roof that was folding in multiple directions simultaneously, or the simple cantilever roof. So the butterfly roof is not out of consideration right now. They are both being considered. But thank you.
This is more of a comment, not a question. There's been discussion in Bloomington about making both College and Walnut Streets two-way streets, and I think that we need to be mindful of the fact that this is going to operate much better if College stays a one-way street.
Thank you.
Isabel, do you have a question?
I wanted to make sure there weren't first-round questions. Peter, go ahead.
Let me ask a quick one. So there's been a lot of conversation to the CIB about a hotel on adjacent to this site. I know a presentation was made in September to the CIB. Are there any updates that we should know about in terms of architectural renderings of how that's going to connect, or any new information that is available at this time?
How about now? Still not? Oh, it is? Okay. Yeah, we interviewed 3 hotel developers in September. They made presentations. What we were very interested in was, as we told them what sites were available for development, how they reacted to that. We just had that meeting with them. We are evaluating those presentations. We intend to meet. We have a hotel evaluation group. We intend to meet prior to our CIB meeting next week to kind of process through what we heard, to see how close we are to making a recommendation about one of those developers. I can tell you that, which I think is an exciting development, that their greatest interest was in the Bunger-Robertson property. And it seems to me that if we're able to work with the RDC and the city and a hotelier, that's a wonderful solution for all of us. So we'll see where we are with that, but we're still in the midst of evaluating that.
Well, thank you. And you know, the media coverage of that was exceptional from the Herald Times. It went through and talked about some of the environmental standards that could be met there too. So we're excited to see how that's going to move forward.
And it comes back to a question about the Beeline Trail, because depending on where that hotel locates, there's can be great connectivity to the Beeline Trail depending on where they actually build that hotel.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Jennifer, did you have your hand up prior? No, okay. So anybody else with first round? Okay, I think Jeff and then Isabel have second round.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Move your mic closer.
Sorry. I just wanted to see if any of the team had reactions to Penny Given's comment. And in particular, have you analyzed what the impact on the project would be if Walnut and College go bidirectional?
So maybe a two-part answer. Yes, we are aware that the streets may become two-way streets, and so our site team, who is not here today, is well aware of that and working through what that accommodation might look like. That's part one. Part two is whether they are two-way streets or one-way street, there is no other space that makes sense for the loading and unloading dock to be. And so two-way or one-way certainly makes the pull-off and pull-in easier. But if it was two-way, I still wouldn't have another space to put that loading yard. And so that's maybe not the answer everybody hoped for, that there's a perfect solution otherwise, but there is not. We have looked at every corner we could look to place that lot, and it A, isn't appropriate on the other corners that are available, and B, it would not work. You're welcome.
I wanted to follow up on possible solar panels, and I wonder if it's been considered to put them on the roof of this building?
We're looking at that as well. We're looking at both the existing building and the new addition to say, would it make sense? What would it take? How much would it cost? So yes. Go ahead. Yes, please. Eddie, yeah. You might want to stand up.
Yep. No, it's on. To add more information to that, what our engineers were actually specifically looking at with vendors is the area of roof, both on this building and the high roof of the new building, and what that payback would be, so we can evaluate all from first cost and operational cost, return on investment sort of thing. What is the best option for that? So we definitely are reviewing that.
Thanks, Eddie.
Peter?
Thank you. So I have a question about electric vehicle charging stations. With the parking garage so close, and there's electric vehicle charging stations there, will there be EVCSs on site in the plans now, or will those be relegated to street or?
So there is no additional parking on the site across the street for just you and me as conference attendees. There is drop-off space, but there are zero additional parking spaces of any kind, because we are fundamentally filling the entire space with streetscape, expanded sidewalks, street trees, building.
Thank you.
I'll just follow up to that question that my take on parking at this point is that we're really going to have to look at it in an iterative way, as we are with design. That 4th Street parking garage doesn't even come close to being able to park the number of participants in a convention here. And frankly, there are days that our city is pretty much filling it up. So we will, as the surface lots begin to get filled, I think we're going to have to continue conversations about where are we putting cars and how do we get people to the convention center. If there are no further questions, first of all, I'm very impressed that we did this in 52 minutes. Well done. And we're just taking notes from the CIB on efficiency now, I think, so thank you to you all. I want to say thank you to John Weikart for his leadership and all the members of the CIB. It's really a delight to follow as efficient a construction process as we possibly can through the design and ultimate construction. This is really a gift to our community, and you all are volunteers and really appreciate the work that you all are doing. And to Schmidt, thank you for incorporating our public comments, our elected officials' comments, and continuing to work on a design that really is going to live so well for Bloomington and Monroe County. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'll take any suggestions for next steps. We have this time outlined for any potential next steps. I think this meeting was helpful to sit around the table. And I also have been interacting with my appointees on the CIB and hope that we all have.
Could we have an idea of the timeline for coming to the City Council with a bond proposal?
What I think we're hearing is that the City Council, if it approves moving forward with the bonding issue, that may be a first quarter of next year, early 2025. So clearly, we want to be before you prior to then. So sometime, I'm ballparking here, sometime at least in December that we're before the City Council, talking about the bond issue and seeking your approval for that. So, but that's, I'm still ballparking here when I say that.
I'll just propose that that we each interact with our appointees on the CIB as needed, attend those meetings, and be grateful for the service that they're providing. I'll also just reiterate something that was discussed after our last meeting like this, which is that we have many topics that it would be helpful to get elected officials sitting around the table and collaborating on in this fashion. And so I would enthusiastically attend meetings like this on issues that are facing our entire community. And I know many share that. And so I have energy for organizing them. I don't need to lead them per se, but I think the collaboration effort is key to serving our constituents very well. I think we can close the meeting. Oh, John?
Oh, I just want to mention again, our next public meeting is next Wednesday, October 9th, here in this building at 3 p.m. And if I may, first I want to apologize to J.S. Held and to Weddle, because, you can make a note to introduce people, but if you don't bother to read it, it doesn't do you any good to have made the note. We're glad you're here. Secondly, I want to say, and I've mentioned this at most of our meetings, we've created a BEAD advisory group, the Bloomington Entertainment and Arts District group, to help us work with the architects, moving forward with design. Jen from Clash Gallery, I see her here. She's an artist and owner of Clash Gallery. She's one of the members of that board, chaired by Galen Cassidy at the Uptown. And last week I had an opportunity to meet with the Bloomington Arts Commission and talk with them about this project, because 1% obviously of the money involved in construction of this project is for the arts. I'm not going to be involved in how we put art in this building, but people who know about art need to be involved in how we put art in this building. So we are one of 11 cultural districts in the state of Indiana, and the Bede District, we want to resurrect that. We want to empower that with this building, and we want to make sure that the Arts Commission is involved. So I just wanted to mention that as well. And thank you all for your time.
Thank you all. Have a great Tuesday.